Year 7, it's time for another lesson on Native Americans, and you've been doing some homework for me where you've created your own Native American character. You've been named by your parents. You've done a little bit of research into a Native American tribe that's on the plains, and you've got yourself a tribe name and a moiety or similar for your tribe. So we're going to do something with that today. But first, we need to look at what Plains Native Americans actually live like. Now, for the purpose of this course, you'll notice I keep stumbling over my words. I'm going to refer to them as Plains Indians. This is incorrect. It's not the correct term, but it's the one that I grew up with. And the more I try and get it right, the more I stumble over my words. So I'll refer to them as the textbooks do, which is Plains Indians. Be aware that that term has problematic associations, but it doesn't offend, as far as I'm aware, anybody who comes from that background, but nevertheless, it's not strictly accurate. So as a historian, it burns, but I'll do my best. Anywho, we're going to be talking about Plains Native Americans or Plains Indians. So without further ado, that bad YouTube thing where I look away from the camera to find the screen, here it is. Let's talk about these images. You know the drill by now. You understand how my lessons work. There are 4 images, and you know that you're going to have to do something with those images. Now, if you're going to play the game properly, when I ask you a question, you will pause the video and have a go at it, and then I'll reveal the answers. That's how it works. I mean, you don't have to pause, I suppose. I can't control you, but then it's not as interesting. So here are 4 images. The question is this: what do the images have in common? Explain what you think is happening in each image. So I'll do that. I'll take away my face, and then you will pause. Okay, I think that's long enough. I'll bring back my face. What are your thoughts? What are each of these images, and how do they relate? We'll start with the second bit first, if that makes sense. And actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to this at the end. I'll come back to this at the end of the video. So those of you that skip forward, ha, 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 you have failed to find the answers. So here goes nothing. You've got some answers to that now. So Native Americans, I'll get rid of my face. Here we go. There we go. When European explorers arrived in America in 1492, they found around 2 million people living there, though estimates vary. There could have been as many as 6 million. These Indians belonged to at least 300 different tribes and spoke over 2,000 different languages. We've talked about this already. There were the Hopi in the east. There were the Tsimshian, you may remember them, from the west. And in the middle, there were people on the plains like the Sioux. Now, the interesting thing is that we didn't find these in 1492. These tribes are from North America, and they weren't found until later. This is important because if you remember on the description that you've seen on Show My Homework, they're living a post-apocalyptic lifestyle. Their way of life was interrupted by the arrival of European settlers who brought smallpox with them. The Native Americans had no natural defenses against smallpox and no natural immunity. It's a bit like coronavirus, except worse. And it wiped out, we think, 96% of their population. So many of them died, it actually made a difference to the world's climate because they stopped burning their campfires for cooking and what have you. It actually made a significant difference to the CO2 levels in the atmosphere and therefore led to a global cooling. I wish I were joking, but I'm not. So it's a significant change in their population. The people who live on the plains have escaped the chaos and the disease and the death of the East Coast a century or so ago by the time we find them. So it's in the dim and distant past for them. No one alive remembers it, but it's been passed down through stories and song. Perhaps predictably, the way it's been passed down is a little bit different and a little bit weird, as you'd expect from having most people die. These tribes are therefore quite different to the tribes on the east and the west coasts, and arguably the most interesting, which is why we do them. Over 40 of these tribes, therefore, including the Sioux, lived on the Great Plains. Now, the Great Plains is shown by this map here. It's the green section. It's slightly wider in places. The Rocky Mountains are sometimes included, but the Great Plains are a vast area of flat land, and it's so flat that were you to stand on the Great Plains, you can literally see the curvature of the earth in the fact that the mountains disappear from the bottom up. And it gets weirder than that. You can almost see the curve. So here's your title if you're writing things down in your exercise book, as you should be. The title is this: what was life like on the plains as a native? What was it like to live there? And here's your task. In pairs. Now, some of you are already yelling at the screen, "Sir, I can't do pairs. I'm at home." Okay. I would like you to pick someone who deserves to be punished, someone who deserves to take more of a role in your schoolwork. This could be a sibling, or it could be a rival, or it could be a parent. Your willing victim, I mean volunteer, will join you in the following tasks so that you have someone to bounce off. Now, ideally, you'll have used the resources on the Show My Homework. You'll have printed off the cards already. I've coloured some of them in tan. I admit, if you're printing off on black and white, it'll just go a nice, neat grey colour. That is perfectly acceptable and perfectly fine. You do not need to use a colour photocopier. You might have noticed that, well, they're designed for use at school where I didn't have access to a colour printer at the time, so they're black and white. It's fine to print them off in black and white. Please don't feel bad. But the idea is you print them off, or if you can't print them off, I guess you do them online and you shove them around on the PowerPoint slide and resave it so that when you do have access to a printer, you can print them off and put them in your exercise book. If you don't have an exercise book, I guess you can stick them with the rest of your notes wherever you're keeping those. But yeah, ideally, you're working in pairs and you're doing this with a willing victim. I mean, volunteer, someone who needs to be punished. I mean, take a role in your education. Here's how it works. The cards that are at the end of this, the end of your thing on Show My Homework are, there's 6 of each type, and you're going to sort them into 6 categories. One of them is coloured in tan. That's the slightly brown colour on one of those slides. There's one image. There are 2 sets of images on the end of the slides. It's just where they fit. And one source, i.e. a quote with a provenance at the bottom telling you who said it and when, on white. From the cards alone, so you're going to sort them out, there's going to be one tan, one image, one white in each of the 6 areas. So there's 6 groups of 3, one of each type in each of the 6 areas. I have not given you the titles of the 6 areas. The idea is you work them out from the information you've been given. You should be able to work out the groups of 3 reasonably easily. The difficulty comes, which area of Native American life does each of those groups of 3 represent? And that is the higher order thinking skill. So if you have got an adult on board, they should breeze through. Sorry, parents and carers and anyone else who've been roped into this. I say sorry, hashtag not sorry. So that's the task. You're going to pause the video and you're going to go away and have a go at that. Now, if you're watching this on a browser rather than your phone, the browser will recall where you're up to in the video. I recommend, if you're not already on a browser, switching to it to remember the timestamp. If you are watching this on your phone, then I guess bully for you, but pause it because, no, it's going to be difficult. It may take a while to do this task, and that is fine. So print out the cards if you can, cut them out if you can, and arrange them. If you can't do that, then you can use the PowerPoint, resave it by putting them into the different areas. You should be able to get 2 groups of 3 to each slide, and there are 3 slides available, so you should be able to move them around relatively easily on your version of the PowerPoint. In a lesson, you would have around about 15 to 20 minutes to do this, depending on your progress, and I would go around and check regularly and then throw spanners in the work. I can't do that. I don't know how long you're going to take. Take as long as you need, but don't, tarry too long. If you've got a parent or a carer or someone in charge involved, they'll be better at timekeeping. Use them to help because I'm sure they've got important things to do as well as your schoolwork. Enjoy. I'm going to pause on my face like this. Whoops, no, not like that. Like this. And then I'm going to pretend the screen is frozen until you get back. Okay, The screen is unfrozen now. I'm going to assume you have paused before you did this task and that you have some ideas about what the 6 areas are. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go back to this screen. I'm going to take away my face and I'm going to go through each one in turn with you. So let's start with this one. Everyone in the family had a role to fulfill and duties to carry out. Men would hunt in order to provide the family, for the family rather, and fight in order to protect the family. A good hunter and warrior could support more than one family and so could have several wives at one time. Young boys were taught the skills of hunting and fighting from a young age. When they were 12 years old, they would join their first hunt as a man. Women were to take care of the home, the children, and food preparation. Little girls would follow their mother's lead and play with dolls and small teepees. The grandparents of a tribe would educate the children through storytelling. When they grew too old, they would leave the tribe and die in the open. This was called exposure. Now, there's a couple of points to point out here. First and foremost, Native Americans believed there were 3 genders. There were male, female, and 2 spirit. And the gender did not necessarily marry up with everything else. If you were home looking after the family and looking after the home, then you were known as a squaw. If you were out hunting and providing for the family, then you were a brave. And if you were 2 spirit, you could do both. Oftentimes they lived alone, but usually they were in a family. And it's interesting to point that out because sometimes braves are what we would term women, and sometimes people at home, the squaws, were what we would term men. 2 spirit were considered more powerful because they could do both roles. So when I say little girls like that, I'm using a very old way of looking at things. The Native Americans would not have recognized how we look at gender and how we look at how people live. So when I say girls and boys, know that I'm cutting short a whole bunch of stuff that the natives believe. I mean, generally speaking, it is like that, but there were differences, and that was perfectly acceptable to Native Americans. So, ladies in the audience, if you are thinking, but I want to be a brave, you absolutely could have been, according to the Native Americans. So, what goes with this tan card? We have a replica of a Native American doll. Well done if you did that. And we have this source describing a vision quest. To become a young man would go on a vision quest. A vision quest lasted from 1 to 4 days and involved fasting and going to a quiet, lonely place. It was believed that he would receive a vision which would tell of his future. The vision, or dream, came as a sign from a guiding spirit. Upon return to the tribe, the person was taken to the shaman. The shaman would interpret his vision. The young man might be given a special name. Now, once again, I've done that thing. A brave. You become a brave through a spirit vision. So you're still a child until you undertake a vision quest, and then you become a brave. If you're got lady parts and you want to be a brave, the Native Americans will be perfectly happy with that. And if you're 2 spirit, you do both. So what are we talking about? Correct. It's family. Well done, those of you that got that one. All right, next one. They get easier. The majority of Native American families lived in a teepee. You can spell that T-E-P-E-E as well if you like, depending on tribe. This was made from buffalo hide and wooden poles. I took a pole once. The people of the tent were not impressed. The women were responsible for building, it's a joke, don't worry, for building and looking after their own family's teepee. And again, I say women, we mean squaws. Inside each teepee was a fire in the center and a layer of furs for the family to sleep on. The smoke from the fire would leave the teepee through a smoke hole in the top created by 2 extra poles on the outside. The teepees were easy to set up and take down and so suited the nomadic lifestyle, that is, moving from place to place, living off the land, of the Native Americans. The buffalo herds moved throughout the year, more about them later, and the tribes had to follow the herds if they were to survive. The source is the Sioux teepee. Well done if you got that one. That was pretty obvious, to be fair, though. That was a photograph taken in 1890. You'll notice it's not made of buffalo hide, it's made of canvas, but it is painted on. And then you've got Chief Flying Hawk, the Lala Sioux. We've met him before. Here's a bit more of his source. Always clean, warm in winter, cool in summer, easy to move. The white man builds a big house. Costs much money. Like big cage, shut out sun, can never move. Indians and animals know better how to live than white man. Nobody can be in good health if he does not have all the time fresh air, sunshine, and water. Well, there you go. So what are we talking about? Homes. Of course we're talking about homes. That made perfect sense, really. If you said houses, that's perfectly acceptable. The Native Americans believed the world was controlled by spirits, good and bad. These spirits were present in the earth, the sun, the moon, and every animal and plant on the plains. Some tribes believed in one great spirit, Wakantanka, above all others. The Native Americans tried to keep these spirits happy through different ceremonies and by treating the land with respect. They took what they needed from nature, but no more. There's some differences in that one, but we'll come on to that. It was also believed that the spirits spoke to people through dreams or visions. The medicine man, or the shaman, was an important person in a tribe who was believed to be able to communicate with the spirits and drive away evil spirits, mainly by taking peyote and chewing on things like squaw root, which, by the way, is a painkiller. It's called squaw root because it relieved the, well, it's to do with squaws. It is, of course, the Sundance ceremony. It's the Mandan people. Basically, what happens in the Sundance ceremony is you pierce yourself through the nipple using 2 teeth from a coyote. You then, through leather straps, tie yourself to a stick that bends, and then you dance around it till you pass out. This can take up to 2 days. And the ceremony allowed you to communicate with the spirit world and find out what they had to say in your trance-like state while hanging from your nipples off a stick. With lots of drums, and the smoke from cocaine plants. It's a religious ceremony. The Mandan people got a lot from it. Other people had other ways of doing it. The source, of course, is Chief Luther Standing Bear, and he's being interviewed in 1905. The Sioux was a true lover of nature. He loved the earth and all the things of the earth. Kinship with all the creatures of the earth, sky, and water was a real and active belief. The old Sioux was wise. He knew that a man's heart away from nature becomes hard. He knew that lack of respect for growing living things soon led to a lack of respect for humans too. Well, make of that what you will. We are engaged in a bit of a crisis environmentally. What are we talking about? We're talking about their beliefs. Next one. We're 3 in. There were 40 different tribes of Native Americans who lived on the plains. Each tribe spoke its own language and had slightly different ways and customs. Each tribe was divided into smaller groups called bands. Usually everyone in a band was related, and there were between 10 and 50 families in a band. Note, bands, not clans. Each band had its own chief, chosen by the band's council, a group of the band's most important men, well, braves. The chief could not force his people to follow him. He had to earn their respect and could be replaced. We've got a Sioux chief, Sitting Bull, very famous man, took part in the Battle of Little Bighorn, which we have spoken about already. And the source? It's getting easier now, isn't it? The council would sit in a large circle around a fire and discuss the issue. The expression of individual opinion was encouraged. Each man was entitled to his say. A pipe would be passed around and everyone smoked it during discussions. At the end of the meeting, when all had their say, the chief would make a decision based on the wishes of the band. It's talking about a powwow. It's actually called a powwow. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the tribe and how it's organized. If you said something about organization or politics, that would be perfectly fine, by the way. No worries there. Okay, getting very easy now. Process of elimination, if nothing else. So, hunting was a man's work. Well, it was the work of the braves, and the survival of the tribe depended upon it. So the young boys, young braves, were taught the necessary skills from an early age. The braves hunted buffalo, deer, rabbits, and fish using lances, traps, and bows and arrows. These early tools were made of stone, bone, and wood, but later the Native Americans used the guns which the white settlers had brought with them. Hunting was carefully planned and involved a high level of skill. Without a successful hunting season in the summer, the Native Americans could risk starving during the long winter. The braves thought it was an honor to feed the old and the weak, and the successful hunter was greatly admired. So it's an honor to go around and deliberately give away your food, is what I'm saying there. What's the source? You're right, it's a Native American Indian brave. There he is. And the source, the written source, is that's a bit slow. During the annual buffalo hunt, the element of surprise is very important. No one is allowed to hunt on their own in case they scare off the herd. If anyone is caught doing this, he is flogged, that means whipped. His weapons are broken and his teepee may be burnt. There you go. It's from a children's information book, How Would You Survive as a Native American Indian, from 2010. Just so you know, if you were a squaw and you were married to a husband and you didn't let him in the teepee, you were considered divorced. Men had to ask to be married and women could say no. I say women, squaws. This means, yes, that's true, homosexual marriage was perfectly allowed in Native American tribes. It wasn't terribly common, but they had no truck with it, and there were instances of it taking place. What are we talking about? We're talking about hunting, though. Finally, this is obvious now because I think there's only 3 cards left. Many tribes were traditional enemies. They had always fought each other in raids. Well, not always, but certainly over the last couple of centuries. It was considered quite normal. They fought to bring home food and livestock, to seek revenge, and to prove their bravery. They are living in a post-apocalyptic landscape, after all. The greatest glory in a raid was gained from counting coup. That's pronounced coup. It's a French word. It means blow, as in punch, not blow as in this is where you would ride up to an opponent and touch him with your coup stick, which had been blessed by the tribe's medicine man. Therefore, killings during tribal clashes were rare. The leader of a successful raid earned great respect from his tribe, especially if no one died. After all, 96% of the population was dead. It follows that culturally, killing more of your fellows was frowned upon. The source, by this point, is obvious, is a Native American holding his battle trophy, though that doesn't look like a Native American illustration. And given what I've just suggested, it doesn't look like a Native American full stop. There's a perception lurking there. I couldn't find a better one for Native American warfare, so I've gone with that. I've given the game away. The Plains Indians believed it was brave to steal horses, to ambush a lone enemy and murder him, or to count coup. But it was not brave to stand and fight to the death if things looked bad. Getting killed was stupid and should be avoided if at all possible. There was no disgrace in running away. To be fair, I think they're talking sense. What are we talking about? I gave the game away. You know, it's warfare. That was kind of obvious. Alrighty then. I have a task for you and a homework. I realize you're doing this at home. It's okay. Just call it extension work. You will have found this on the show my homework thing where I've left this, and this is the thing there. So you've gone through 6 areas of a Native American's life on the plains. I would like you now to show your understanding of those areas. You've probably stuck them in your book. You should have stuck them in your book. To show your understanding of those 6 areas by picking one to talk more about. You're going to write a conversation between a young Native American, it's you, and an elder. You're going to make them up. They're being taught about one of the following things in the tribe that you have researched. So I hope you found a tribe with a bunch of information. You're going to go and you're going to talk about one of the following. Now, if you want to do more, if you want to make this into a full drama piece and a full drama script, please go ahead. There is nothing to stop you going further. But one of these 4 areas, a vision quest, a gathering of the tribe, that would be a powwow, warfare, or the spirits, that would be their belief. And I am, whoops-a-daisy, I am failing at video. I am going to ask you to produce this in a written format. However, you don't have to submit the written format. On the Show My Homework section, it very clearly states that you can do this howsoever you wish and in whatever format you wish. If you want to record it as an MP3 on your phone, and many phones come with an MP3 recorder, you're absolutely free to do so. If you want to act it out with the person you roped into helping out with the source task, please feel free, as long as they're able to do so. Don't badger them unnecessarily. If you want to do it together with someone online, someone in the form or a friend in year 7 who's doing the same lesson, and you want to talk to them online and create a script between yourselves and submit it between the 2 of you, that is also fine. If you wish to record it on Zoom or any other video conferencing system, and you play different roles, that would be amazing. Ultimately, in a lesson, I just ask you to write it down, and then some people might get a chance to act it out if we had time in the lesson. So if you just want to write it down on a computer, or you want to write it down by hand, that is perfectly fine. There's no shame in that whatsoever. The marks, as usual, will be A, O, B. A for above target, you're doing well above what we'd expect. So if you're already getting high grades, I'm sorry, A is really hard to get because you're already brilliant. O is what I expect most of you to get. That is good. It means you're on target, you're doing exactly what's required, and you're still improving. That doesn't mean you're staying still, but you're improving, and it means you're on track for where we expect you to be given your grade. I have been teaching a long time. I have a reasonable assumption where you should be. Finally, there's B, and that is the warning of, ooh, and that's below target. For whatever reason, you have fallen short of the standards you have set for yourself. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a warning to remind you. But yeah, most of the time, that's why I use AOB. Please don't get too hung up on it, is my point. The feedback is more important. I look forward to your formats and how you decide to do this. I have not given you very long. That is semi-deliberate. We've got more to do, and I want to build on what you come up with. So please don't worry if it's a bit ad hoc and a bit, well, not fully polished. That's fine. Take as long as you need on this. If you want to make it fully polished and submit it late, that is perfectly fine. If you're watching this video and it's already late, that is also fine. I will still be marking things over the summer holidays. I won't be setting any more work over the summer holidays though. So hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, go back, listen to it again. That's the joy of videos. Thank you if you have been for watching. I look forward to your conversations, and I will see you next time with the next lesson.